Okay, thanks. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending where in the world you are. I'm Lisa Berkeley, and this is Reaction to Response, a webinar series which is to provide an opportunity to hear from thought leaders who are helping us shift from fear-based reactions to care and compassion-based responses. We're brought to you and birthed through the Charter for Compassion Women and Girls sector. And the Charter for Compassion is in over 400, has over 400 cities, with 1,800 partners in 53 countries. And we're divided into 12 sectors. So you can learn more about us at thecharterforcompassion.org. Before we begin today's webinar, there's just a couple of little housekeeping things to take care of. First, this call is being recorded. Second, if you have any tech issues, you can go to zoom.us. And then throughout the call, if you have any questions or comments for the speaker or any kind of other issues, there's a chat box which you can hover at the bottom of your screen for those who are watching live and submit your questions or comments. Also, just want to take a minute and thank people who have been working behind the scenes with us. That's Sandy Hart, Brianna Lathrop, Susan DeGaia, and Betsy Spano. Today's guest is Mia Pean, the founder and director of My Sister's Place in Haiti. She's been working globally in the field of human trafficking for more than 15 years and has bridged from contributing to policymaking to educating and empowering young people who have been trafficked. You can also read more about her on the Charter for Compassion Women and Girls page on the Charter for Compassion website. Without any further ado, I would like to introduce you all to Mia. So Mia, welcome and thank you for being with us today.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. My name is Mia Pean. Thank you for having me. This is really an honor. And this is, I think this is the best time to talk about rescuing girls from being trafficked or boys, young boys all over the world. And thank you, Lisa, for having me.
Awesome. So can you tell us a little bit about your story? How did you get involved with human trafficking and what is it that pulled you into it?
About 10 years ago, I was traveling as a consultant with a law firm to Nigeria. And we had, because of my background working with domestic violence, and we had the hotel that we were staying, and there were a young woman, and she was being I guess she was trafficked. She was trafficked from Dakar to Nigeria to service men that come to the hotel. So someone came to me and says, I know that you have you've been doing some counseling part-time. Can you talk to somebody at the lobby, because we have spotted a young woman at the lobby. She's crying and she has tattoo all over her body. So we need to know how to talk to her, because she would not talk to us. So definitely I went and answered the call. And from there, after the earthquake in Haiti, I went down there to work as a relief worker with my consulting firm. And there were a lot of illegal trafficking, children from 4 to 20, 21 being trafficked from either the border of Dominican Republic or to Mexico to be transit to the United States.
Wow. And just to be clear, so when we're talking about human trafficking, they're being bought and sold for what purposes?
There's two type of trafficking in Haiti. There's one called modern day slavery, where the child is domestic worker, and she would be working from 4 o'clock in the morning up to sundown, and then sometimes they would service the boys in the neighborhood, meaning sexually. And we also have sexual trafficking, where they traffic them between the Dominican Republic border and also to Jamaica, where they end up being in the United States. That's what I mean, modern day slavery and sex trafficking.
Okay, wow. So before we jump into the meat of this conversation, which because as we talked about in our pre-conversation in preparing for this conversation, there's so many components to it, and today we're really going to get into rescuing and empowering these young people, and recognizing the signs so that other people can be of help, so we can stop these kinds of atrocities. But before we do that, the women and girls sector, and actually all of Charter for Compassion, is looking to address the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen, and we can have a little bit of a conversation about the sustainability goals and how they connect with human trafficking. If we
Definitely.
Okay, so on the screen, as you can see, we have all 17 of them. Which ones particularly do you think are relevant?
For me, the one that are relevant is eliminate poverty, which sometimes it seems like a gigantic problem, too big to solve. And I believe that we need the right strategy and education. Education for boys and girls, and then also gender equality. For me, which is to empower girls and women, because I believe that when 90% of the women income goes to her children, and also reducing inequality. Reducing inequality is in terms of income where we are from each other, and how much the richer gets and how much the poorest doesn't get anything at all. So for me, quality education, no poverty, gender equality is top key for me.
So you're right. We're looking at 1, 4, 5, and 10. Okay. Well, that's a lot to touch on. And also, as I shared with you in one of our previous reaction to response webinars, Sandy Hart, the director of Women and Girls, came up with the fact we probably need an 18th goal, which is around self-awareness and personal agency, and that really the more we're aware of our own shadow side and what's happening with us, we're also more able to take greater responsibility for mitigating these 17 goals. Does this feel relevant to our topic?
Yes, I think sometimes that when we use compassion, you have to be compassionate to yourself in order for you to be compassionate to others. If you don't have compassion for yourself, you won't have compassion for others. And you have to be kind to yourself in order to have kindness for others. So I think that being self-aware of others' plight, it's knowing that this person is hurting. How may I alleviate? How may I alleviate their problem? How can I help? And once you can do that, I think that any agency that can bring people together to have compassion for others, I think we're in the right path. To me, that's self-awareness. And if you don't mind, Lisa, I would love to go back to 5 before we touch 18, if you don't mind.
Sure.
For me, I believe that when you empower the life of a woman and girls, it's linked to all of this, to 1, to 4, to 10, even to 18. Because when you empower the life of a young girl, and what it does, it talks about health, it talks about education, it talks about building sustainable community, it talks about building sustainable nation. Right. So when you can do that, that's when you're starting having compassion for your next door neighbor. Right. That's when you start having compassion for anyone else for that matter. Who's your neighbor? Who's my brother? Who's my sister? That's what the good book said. And the good book said, it doesn't matter the person that came from your womb, the same womb as you, your mother or your father, but it's the person that sitting next to you in the bus, sitting next to you in the train station, sitting next to you in the church or wherever, the synagogue, the mosque. These are your neighbors. And once we can empower people, we can empower women and girls, and the compassion is going to be like a domino effect.
Mhm. Amen to that. And this is this is you really you're thinking made me think too again about the 18th, because when you listen to your story, your compassion and your own self-awareness and care is really what enabled you to go help that young girl and then get into this field.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else on these goals? Because clearly we could get very deeply into all of them. But
Not to stay too long. I wanna go back to 18.
oh, okay.
18. My journey began by having compassion for Mia, because as an immigrant child, I was physically, mentally, emotionally abused, and there was no one to talk to. People were looking at me like it's not my business. But if I'm not your business, this is when I'm at risk to become a young traffic, a young woman that's going to be trafficked. I'm at risk to use drugs. I'm at risk to being in prison. I'm at risk not having an education. So I believe when the people at my church, when I was growing up, when they saw what we went through, by them having compassion for us, by speaking for the ill that was, I guess, that was put upon us, they helped me to know that if they can have compassion for me, they don't even know me. I need to have compassion for others. I need to be able to help others lift themselves from poverty, from drug abuse, from um, trafficking, human trafficking, and love yourself. Be aware of your own yourself. Be grateful for the life that you have.
Mhm.
So I guess that's my take on self-awareness.
Absolutely. So your story, I'm going to come back to your story a little bit more. You just mentioned being an immigrant.
Yes, yes.
And one of the things that you and I had previously talked about is the immigrant communities and how vulnerable they are for being trafficked.
Hmm.
Can you speak a little bit more about that?
Well, I guess as a newcomer, when being in Brooklyn, I grew up in Brooklyn at the age of 11, and my stepmother would love to just kick us out in the house.
Mm-hmm.
And by the age of 15, I was homeless. And I really can say we were homeless because we were living in an abandoned building. And when the church find out, and that's how the journey began.
Mm-hmm.
The journey began by knowing that, you know, this is never going to be me again. I'm going to lift myself from where I came from by being an immigrant, because in my community, it was hard to talk about things that was going in the home. It's taboo to talk to others about things that's going on in your home.
Mm-hmm.
And as a newcomer into that population, we didn't know where to go, who to go to. And they were, sometimes they were telling us that you're going to be, the cops going to take you and going to throw you in juvenile hall. And by going to school, we knew what juvenile halls was. So from there, I said, oh my God, there was no one. There was no one to help alleviate this problem for me and my sister. So as after I left the situation and I got married and went to school, studied sociology and criminal justice, and I understood criminality. I understood sociology. I understood the study of human behavior, and again, from being self-aware, from having compassion for Mia. And I said, in my lifetime, no one's going to go through this journey that I went through. In every immigrant community, there's a child. There's a child that's probably afraid of deportation, afraid of immigration, afraid of the law enforcement, afraid of telling Lisa to, I'm going through some things that's unbearable, but I need somebody to help me.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where that my journey took me to human trafficking, because I saw a lot of girls get into drugs, getting into prostitution, getting into escort services. But I know that that life wasn't for me. So by having compassion for myself, and I said, in my lifetime, I have to do something to change this in every immigrant community, where we need to bridge the gap. We need to bridge the gap in every community, where in every immigrant community, African community, the Caribbean community, you name it, the European community, you need to bridge the gap, because there's a question of cultures. There's a question of culture where you are not allowed to talk about certain things with certain people, because it brings shame on your community. So I started doing a crisis intervention within the school system, a youth program where you mentor a young person with a police officer, or where we do programs where we have a sport day, some sport activities where they know that the law enforcement is your friend. It's not necessarily there to punish you.
Right. I was so you just mentioned schools and things. I'm going to jump to going back to some shared screen. I'm going to go to some of our slides about recognizing the signs, especially in schools. Oops. So we've got obviously here, that as you said, human rights is a human trafficking or a human rights crisis, and then how we recognize the signs. Let's talk a little bit about the misconceptions of sex trafficking.
I guess we sometimes the misconception, we think that it just happened in poor city, in poor neighborhoods, but human trafficking happens all over. It happens in rich area. It happens in middle income. It happens within the church. That might surprise you. It happens within the school system. It also happens within the massage parlor, the nightclubs. Sometimes you see a young girl dancing, and they're not there because they just want to be there. So we have some misconception about human trafficking, which entail modern day slavery, which entails sex trafficking. So the misconception it's like a myth. It needs to be broken, where we can talk about it, where we can, for me, and I always said to people that we need to make the men our allies. We need to have men to talk about it. Because once a man starts talking about the ills of human trafficking, everybody's going to start listening.
I'm going to jump for another slide, because you just made some points here that, both in the immigrant communities, when people are vulnerable, and how do you recognize the signs, and where do you recognize them? And you just touched on this a little bit, but I will put this up here as well, just quickly, people to see what it is specifically that your areas to recognize and where they can find these people or young children. So you mentioned the schools, hotel lobbies, airports, restaurants, massage parlors, and farming communities. As far as the immigrant communities, I mean, so there's a few places we can go on this, as far as here in the States, as far as globally, and recognizing the signs. So I'm going to just jump to a little bit more about recognizing the signs. Do you want to say here, because I'm going to come back so that we can talk more about the various populations and some more specific of your work.
I think that with the school system, the administrators, the school counselors, the teachers, they are our biggest allies. Sometimes a child is not engaged in their schoolwork. Sometimes a child that that can perform above grade or can be an A student, they're performing below grade. And you see a sudden change in their dress, the way they dress. You see a sudden change in the way they perform academically, and they get into a lot of trouble. And they have money, and they have their brand when I said when they have tattoos all over, sometimes it says daddy, or sometimes, because sometimes what they do, they send that young woman to school, but in the afternoon, she's fair game for that pimp or for that John. So you need to be aware of their performance within the school. Are they performing below grade? Is there sudden change where they were really performing? Because I met this young 15-year-old girl. She's a survivor. She's from very well class, middle income class, living in a beautiful neighborhood. Then at the age of 16, she was turned by her boyfriend. That, she was so happy with her boyfriend. And 15 years old, she was performing above grade. She was an A student. At the age of 16, she left home, and then she became a prostitute where she was burned. And now she's 18 years old. She said it's very hard because she was woken by the boyfriend. She was beaten. So now that's the change you have to see in the child. She was performing, and from age 16 to 17, she started performing in school. She stopped having friends, normal friends. She started having a lot of money and cars and jewelry, because that's how they get you.
Mm-hmm. Right. You remind me, and I've heard some stories of young girls who are, in the out at a coffee shop or whatever, or just on the street or walking around town, and suddenly another girlfriend says, "Hey, I got this cool new fill in the blank pocket, purse or jewelry or phone or whatever." And suddenly she becomes friends with that young girl, and then it turns out that young girl has been used as bait by a pimp to bring her into the community, and then or into the brothel, basically, I guess you could say. And as I understand, then the pimp will actually go to the young woman's house, young girl's house, or even young boy's house late at night after everybody's gone to sleep, and break in and basically kidnap the young child and have them doing sexual acts at night and returning them before everybody wakes up. So I think that's also kind of what it is you're talking, as I understand. Is that correct?
Yes, and sometimes traffickers, what they do, they make you believe that they're in love with you. Mm-hmm. They make you believe that you are the best thing that ever happened by giving you gifts that out of this world. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But in actually what they wanted to do is to bring you in slowly, then so they can really make you be part of the life that they have in mind for you. Right. So yes.
So you mentioned this young girl that you have in mind who was 15 and then 16, and her boyfriend brought her in, and that not only did her grades and everything drop, but she had other symptoms as well. And on the screen, I've just put what some of those are. Can you go through them?
The physical signs. You have sign. You are branded. Actually, you are branded inside your thighs. You are branded. It's either daddy or daddy's little girl. You are using a lot of alcohol and drugs. I'm not talking about big drugs. And the low self-esteem that you have. Low self-esteem that you sometimes young girls, they don't have. And I guess in every society, when you have young women who comes from broken home, or who comes from a home where both parents they work so hard, and they forget that their child is part of is why that they're working so hard. So the child is left. It seems like, I don't matter to my parents, so I need someone to love me. That's the emotional sign. Depression, the anxiety that they feel sometimes. They feel that they're left out by their parents. And also the social norm, where that the home where they live in is unstable. Is unstable, meaning that parents, mother and father, are fighting every day. or if they're living in a single home, um, the mother doesn't have any time for the child, where she's always working, and it becomes where she's a target. She's a target for traffickers. She's a target for being trafficked because low self-esteem, and there's no love in the home.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we forget that when we're working so much, there are times that we need to set apart to set to your child, I love you, let's talk. What is it that you need me to do for you? What is it? How do you see our relationship, mothers, fathers, and child? How do you see it growing? Because that child needs that emotional empowerment from you. When they don't have it, they feel lost. So the sign, the physical, the emotional, and the social, young women or young men have a tendency, when they don't find love at home, they seek it elsewhere.
Mm-hmm. And especially, we went into talking about the signs by talking about immigrant communities as well. And, when a family is new to a region, they don't necessarily know the social norms or the cultural cues necessarily. And also the parents are working so hard. In the work that you're doing, like, for example, here in the States, or maybe in other countries as well, you just mentioned a number of pretty strong signs. How do you connect with the child, and where does one go once you see signs like this? What's the process?
Let me start by integration. The biggest challenge for an immigrant child or immigrant parent in a community is not really sometimes racial barriers. It's not racial barriers, cultural or language barrier, a cultural barrier or language. Mm-hmm. So sometimes the misunderstanding is what we need to do is to reduce the misunderstanding between law enforcement, between the school administration, between the community, where we need to be more engaged. We need to bridge the gap, because sometimes you have a woman that probably she's illegal, and because she's here illegally, or she's her husband has a green card, but the husband is going to use that against her. So she fears law enforcement because of deportation. Mm-hmm. She fears the school administrator. She doesn't trust. There's a lack of trust. There's a lack of trust, and not knowing that I am here for you. Law enforcement are here to help you. Mm-hmm. Law enforcement and immigration are not the same. Let's make that clear. Right. Legally, they are not the same. Law enforcement, immigration is two entities. Immigration is immigration. They enforce the law for people who are here illegally to probably fix their status. Law enforcement is here to enforce the law. So when we can help an immigrant child or immigrant mother or immigrant father knows that this is the difference between the two, then they can, that's where the trust starts. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because there's a lack of trust.
Right. So if somebody were to see a young woman or a young child who raised the red flags that we just kind of discussed about the signs, where should someone go? What should they do?
First of all, you need to seek help. There's so many. And right now, I'm so happy to say that my sister's place here in Atlanta, we have our own hotline line where people can call in. We can counsel. We can talk to them and direct them to different communities, to different places, like the churches, the interfaith community. There's a lot of people right now, because when I talk to rabbis, when I talk to people at the mosque, I told them that this is a human rights crisis. This has nothing to do with faith. Sometimes you may have the best faith in the world, but it would not be able to save you. Because when you are under the spell of a John or a trafficker, you really need some strong support system to get out. The churches, the shelters, and also there's a lot of places that you can go. And if you go to the hospital and talk to someone, they will direct you to different agencies within the community.
Mhm. Can you tell us a little bit more about My Sister's Place and the work that you've been doing?
My Sister's Place is the reason why it's called My Sister's Place. I remember I it's for my sister and myself. I think that everyone needs a sister. Everyone needs an ambassador. Everyone needs someone that they can confine in. And unfortunately, my sister and myself, we didn't have that. So I felt that now that I am in a place where I can help others, I need to have a sister's place. So that's how the journey began. After 2004, there was a natural disaster in Haiti where 500,000 children lost their parents in a flood right before Katrina. And a friend of mine that a mentor I used to work with, he told me what is it that we can do for them. And when I remember my story, and I said, you know what, we need to give them shelter because this is when they are at risk of being trafficked, of becoming domestic at someone's house, and being sexually abused. So what I did, we built schools. We built a school. We built a school for those kids and a shelter. And the part was we need to rescue children that was either being trafficked or becoming a domestic. And from there, we started rescuing children. We work with them, we empower them, we enforce the SDG goals, eliminating poverty, the roots of hunger, education which open minds and doors. Actually, this is our motto at the school. Education open minds and doors. Because when you are educated, you are less likely to become somebody else's sex slave. And also to empower the women in the community, where we had a project called Mosaic, and everybody bring their own piece of tile where we put it together. And then this is.
I'm sorry, they bring their own piece of
Mosaic tile. Yeah, tiles. So this is the strategy we use. It was the key to alleviate or actually to empower the community where we were. So My Sister's Place is a place where we give shelters, we rescue the girls, we give shelters, we provide an education, and we also empower the lives of the women around us by providing them with job training, by providing them with an education if they don't have one, and also by letting them know that they matter in this world. You matter. Whoever you are, whatever race you may be, you matter. It doesn't matter if you are poor or rich. You can lift yourself from where you came from. I mean, I see so many success stories. We have 4 of our girls now. They are administrators at the Marriott. We have 2 young women that we rescue, 2 young men that we rescue. Now they are second petty officer at the United States Navy. These are success stories for My Sister's Place. And My Sister's Place now is in Atlanta. We're going to do more. The sky's the limit. But the challenge that we face, it makes my sister's life interesting. Overcoming them, it makes it meaningful. It makes their lives meaningful. Whoever the survivor is, becoming a survivor, their life's gonna be meaningful somehow because they're gonna go ahead and have education. They're going to have an education. They're going to be empowered. because I know that when women put their forces together, when women says we're gonna fight this ill, and from from the core of my being, I know that when we get together, we can eliminate this ill. And this is a human right crisis, and I don't want anyone to just belittle this, because human trafficking is real. Human trafficking, every 30 seconds a young child, a young man, a young woman is being trafficked. Now a lot of young boys are trafficked. So I want to speak about the boys.
Mm-hmm.
Let's not forget our boys. They are being trafficked.
Yeah. Yeah. So I know that you're presently based in Atlanta, even though your work is both in Atlanta and in Haiti. And so there's a question that came from Sandy. It says, is there any awareness training being done in Atlanta airport, hotels where trafficked people pass through?
The industry, the commercial industry should have an input in the society on how they see sex trafficking. They should be these people should be one of our allies. These industries should be one of our allies. I don't think there is. Cindy and I, we can talk about making something happen where we can work with the agent, the customer agent at American Airline, Delta, any airline, so have you. We need to have this conversation. I don't think there is. I don't know if there's one, but as for me, for my own knowledge, I don't think there is.
I do know that some of the airlines do overall training for stewardesses and pilots to recognize the signs. I don't know if there's any specific airport regulation done, but I can't remember now the name of the woman who has been overseeing that. But but that's different than actually in the airport, or a specific task force that's in the airport. You sent me some incredible photographs of
Yes.
these two young stories. So would you be willing to share if I'm going to put their photographs up for
Sure.
Because I think there's
you can put the first one,
yeah.
the two small ones. Yes.
Here we go. Okay. Tell us about these two beautiful young girls.
These two young sisters that I rescued at the border of Dominican Republic, they were being trafficked actually for sex. And because that some men nowadays, they like young children with no pubic hair, the ones that are virgin, really virgin, but they were being trafficked. There's a place in the Dominican Republic where men from Europe comes from black little girls with virgin black little girls. They should be from 5 to 9 years old, and then from there they're no good. And we rescued them because we were working with Jesuits. It's a Catholic services where they would call me at night. Actually, we had to rescue these two young kids from actually 2 o'clock in the morning. And I am proud to say now that one of them last year, May 8th, she had her first communion, Michaela. That's the one with the bow. And then this, that's her. And then the older sister now, she's going through things because they were there at least for 2 years. But now she's in 8th grade. Anael, her first name is Anael, and now they are at home with their parents, because what we do after we rescue them, we make sure that they have medical care, make sure that they go to a thorough physical from the hospital, and then we place them in school. We place them in protective services, and then work with the parents, empower the life of their mothers or their cousin or their caretaker. So now I can say safely they're home, and they're thriving in school.
What a difference between oops, sorry. Uh-oh.
Say it again for me,
What
Lisa.
a difference between there's like no light in their eyes and then you've brought them
Yes,
light back. What a
yes,
difference. Wow.
yes, yes. And the other group you see on your right, these are young women that we rescued. They were trafficked. They were trafficked.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, the three that's kneeling down, they are administrators. Two of them are working with the Marriott as business administrators, and one is a customer service with Best Western, and then the other one they're continuing their school studies.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. So you mentioned bringing these girls back to their parents. Where were their parents to begin with?
Well, sometimes in Haiti there's something called reste avec. Reste avec is domestic. It's a French word for domestic work. Sometimes when you are extremely poor, you have to sell your child to a well-off family that says that they're going to take care of that child, and sometimes they're not doing so. So when we rescue those kids, we went to their parents and I asked their parents, "Did you know that you sold your child to a trafficker?" They said no. They told us that they're going to take care of our kids and they're going to give them an education. And so when we showed them what the type of education the child was receiving, and they were appalled, so they wanted to work with us. It's a common ill, extreme poverty. We need to work to eliminate poverty, and it's not a gigantic problem. It can be solved, but how do we get together to do this? And we even have kids here in Atlanta that being sold by their parents. How do you solve this problem from a poor community where you have people with lots of money? Sometimes their neighbors, door neighbors next, the city next door, it's filthy rich. How do you bridge the gap? Again, how do you bridge between a poor neighborhood and a middle income and rich neighborhood? So it's up to us to come together and fight this human rights crisis.
Mm-hmm. So we have a question, I can't read her name, from Namrata, who is in India. And she says, how do we identify girls who are victims of trafficking? In India, we have many kids on the streets, some of whom have been asked by their parents to beg or sell cheap items.
What's her name? Amarata?
No, I can't read it. I'm sorry. Namrata, not Namrata. Namrata, forgive me if I'm mispronouncing.
Namarat. Okay.
Namrata.
Forgive me if I'm mispronouncing your name. Thank you for being
Namrata.
part of this webinar. Sometimes they appear malnourished. Okay, Namarata.
Namrata.
Namarata. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Miss Singh. Thank you, Miss Singh. Sometimes they have a sexual profile online. Sometimes they are, you see them with a much, much older partner where they would never be with this person in a normal child. You'll never see them with this kind of partner. They exhibit depression, anxiety. They also exhibit low self-esteem and a lot of visible bruises and scars, a lot of sign of drugs. They're using drugs a lot and their eyes are glazed. The eyes are glazed. You have to, and they do not make eye contact. They definitely do not make eye contact with you. They don't know where they came from. They lost track of time. They lost, they always have money with them and they're not working or they're working long hours and some appear malnourished. So these are the common signs that I come. There's more, but the sign is malnourished, visible bruise and scars, signs of drugs. Their eyes are glazed, and they cannot make eye contact with you. They have a sexual profile online. They also exhibit depression and also low self-esteem, very, very low self-esteem. They 1 minute they don't want to be alive, then the next minute they're up. So yes,
I
I
just
don't know if I answered that question,
I
Miss
just
Dang.
yeah, I just put the signs on the screen as well. And just for the record, and I don't know if I hope Namrata, who is the director of Women and Girls Charter for Compassion's Women and Girls sector in India, I hope that she will stay online in about 15 minutes when we all join as a full group and can share some of her experiences.
And I want to say again, sometimes someone who has been molested as a young child is a target. So these are the signs. Sometimes someone who has been molested in the past, they are a target because this person, she doesn't feel love. She's not receiving love from her parents, and she can trust no one. These are one of the common signs that traffickers are looking for: a broken child.
And to that point, and you've mentioned this before, that when a child is broken, they're so yearning for love and hope, and that's what a pimp will sort of give a false sense of. Whereas if the community can step up, it's a very different outcome.
And I think that also that a young woman who's looking for a father figure, a young woman that can be easily manipulated. When you can be easily manipulated or you are vulnerable, and someone who suddenly she wants to become, she feels invisible to inside her home. So definitely that would raise that she wants to become independent. She's been molested, but in her past she was molested in her past, and she's also looking for that father figure that most of us, all of us want, all of us is yearning for, and so by to protect our children, I think all of us, I know that all of us need to educate ourselves by being aware what's taking place in the community and what's at stake. Once you are aware in the home, once you know that, I think that little by and we can help our young women by not becoming prey.
So when somebody sees the signs, to just recap some of what you said earlier, so if somebody sees the signs, they should go to schools or churches or law enforcement and try and get them involved immediately.
Yes.
I wonder if a church or a school, are there particular agencies that you think are better than others? Because I know certainly in some of the sex trafficking prevention that's occurred in some places in India, for example, but also throughout the globe, there's law enforcement who choose to turn a blind eye to it. Maybe there is some financial gain or kickbacks that are involved. So part of the question is, how do you know that you're going to a right person?
Call your local shelter. Talk to someone that you feel comfortable. I'm not gonna say trust. Victim doesn't trust anyone. We need to encourage our community to take the responsibility to become a partner in this journey. This is a journey. This is a $32 industry. We may never be able to eradicate human trafficking. We may never be able, but if we can help 5 girls today, if we can help 5 girls this week, we need to encourage law enforcement. We need to encourage our pastors
Right.
We need to encourage our chambers of commerce to talk. We need to encourage the industry, the commercial industry, like hotels. We need to work with hotels, the airport, with the mayor's office, with the interfaith committee. We need to encourage them to take responsibility because sometimes when you think that human rights does not affect you, understand somehow the underlying cause of human trafficking is uniquely tied to each and every one of us. You got to understand that. We need to understand that.
So, can you say more about that?
Underlying the cause. I'm just reading something from.
No, that's okay. Well, there's two things. So I'm curious about the trust piece of it. You talk about how the trust, these young women or young girls or young boys don't necessarily trust somebody reaching out to them. So how do you establish that trust? And then
you know, one of my girls that I used to work with, and she was there for 3 years, and actually she was being trafficked by United Nations peacekeepers in Haiti. That's such a travesty. People that are coming into a country to make peace or to keep the peace, and they're the one who so she was the hardest, and she said, you know, I am broken from inside out. I don't feel loved, I don't feel wanted, and I love to give hugs to my kids, and I always tell them, you know, be great and grateful for your life. You need to learn how to be great, whatever the situation may be. Whatever the situation may be great. Own yourself, own your truth. When you can own yourself and, you know, I'm going to be great today, I'm not going to allow no negativity to come in. But it's hard for a survivor to do so. You have to keep reminding that child, you are loved. You are loved. Keep giving hugs. And what she told me, she said, you know, Miss Mia, I am broken inside and out. But I really want you to give me a hug today. She doesn't like to be touched. She doesn't trust anyone. And she told me one day, she said, I know you're not going to be in my life forever, but I need to learn the process. So we need to teach them to learn the process. We need to make them your friend. Don't ever be discouraged when you go to her or to him today and they're not relating to you, they're not talking back. But know that whatever you're telling them, it's going in. And somehow it's gonna sink in. Because when they are by themselves, they're gonna think about it, because everybody wants to be loved. Everyone needs to have hope. So when you can give them hope, they don't need anything else. I know that when I was broken as an immigrant child, when 16-year-old in Brooklyn, I was broken. And my church welcomed me. They opened their arms. They said, we love you. We want you to know that you matter. And I had that love. And I had that hope that I'm going to be. And the best revenge is success. And I became successful. And I for my journey. And I always said to my children, challenges make life interesting. However, overcoming them, that's what makes life interesting. That's what makes life meaningful. So I always tell my girls in Haiti, overcoming your barriers, overcoming being a victim, you're not a victim anymore. That's what's going to make your life meaningful. So I can say that giving love and hope, that will break the barrier. So but you have to keep at it.
That's the perfect segue to Namrata's next question or questions. She says, who should be educated about trafficking? Should it be the parents of the underprivileged kids or the kids themselves? And I might add, or both.
I think that for me, we need to have a sense that nowadays we need to talk about to our kids about everything because they are exposed with the internet world. They're exposed to people that says they love them. Forget about your parent. They don't love you. They cannot give you this. I can give it to you. You need to educate your child. Let them know that they are at risk. Do not be shy in talking to your young men or your young women about it. And second, we need to educate the parents. Mm-hmm. We need to educate the parents that there's still this thing out there that they are preying on your young vulnerable child. They are preying on the sensibility of the young mind. So we need to educate both. And at the same time, we need to have a conversation. We need to shift conversation with lawmakers. We need to shift that conversation because the federal laws doesn't the dark web page. Federal law protects the pimp, the traffickers, but it does not protect the prostitutes. Mm. You have to understand that sometimes when you see a woman who's a prostitute in the street corner, she was probably a child that was kidnapped or she was sold and traded for sex. So that's the only life she knows. So we need to make the law stiffer. We need to educate our lawmakers, our administrators, the schools, the church, and the education needs to start in the home, mm-hmm. where mothers and child needs to have a conversation about being trafficked, mm-hmm. about being preyed on.
Do you, hold on, sorry. Namrata says, what lovely lessons, be great and grateful. Everyone needs love. The best revenge is success. Yeah. So yeah. That's one of my favorite things about you, Mia, is every time we've spoken and I say, how are you? Say, I'm great and grateful. Those are words to live by.
Yes, we should put ourselves in a higher standard where we know that we are great. We are great human beings because when we were created to be great. Own it, become great. And every day, it doesn't matter what life throws at you. Be grateful. Be grateful for being able to, you can see, you can speak for the voiceless. You can speak for those who doesn't have a voice. You can eat. I can talk to you. I can smell you. I can see you. I can hear you. Be grateful just for that. And then the best revenge becomes successful. That's what's going to make your life meaningful. So I live by these. Sometimes people think that I have $1 million in the bank, but I have $1 million being grateful.
That's awesome. You know, one of the things you just remind me too that I think is so pertinent, especially in the face of something as challenging as human trafficking, which is just so profoundly heartbreaking. You said, the moment you become too angry is the moment you lose the fight. The moment you become too angry is the moment you lose the fight. And so I think that's
yeah.
I thought like, okay, because it's so easy in this situation to be angry with all of these horrific people who are harming our children and our future. So, did we lose you, or is it just me?
You know, sometimes when you work with you cannot be angry at no one. Don't just leave it behind.
Yeah. And how do you find when you're working in all of this work? I mean, how do you deal with the stress of it as somebody who's so deeply engaged in this work?
I pray a lot, Lisa, but I do not pray like everybody else. I pray a lot, but I don't pray like everybody else. My prayer can be music. I'm dancing and I'm thinking the Almighty. I'm thinking nature. I can go running in the street. I can jogging for a jog and or for a walk. And I thank Almighty for my lambs. And I think about others not having what I have.
Mm-hmm.
I think of being able to be a voice, to be a force, to be a force for the one that doesn't have a voice. And sometimes when I'm really into solitude, I listen to music that can uplift my spirit because music is a therapy for my soul.
Mm-hmm.
Music is the best therapy for my soul, and you can see that on everything that I send out. Music is the therapy for my soul, and I do a lot of meditation, and I also talk to my kids. I also talk to my girls, letting them know that there's still hope. Do not lose hope, even if you don't see me this year, you don't see me next month, but I'm still here. I'm still speaking on your behalf.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I go within myself, and I try to find a balance. You have to find balance between your work, and then I watch a lot of Law and Order. So that's how I cope with it. Because
Law and Order is a
when
good
oh,
therapy.
you did get that. I
Yeah.
watch lot of, yeah, that's a good therapy for me because when Law and Order as view victim, you can get the perpetrator. I'm all good. I am good with that.
Awesome.
Or else sometimes we cannot get the perpetrator.
Right. So on that note, we're at the 9 o'clock hour. And so we're going to switch over to, hold on. Oh, Namrata says, glad to hear you mention meditation because it's a critical support for survivors of human trafficking to deal with the adverse
Yes.
effects of their experience. Yeah. Do you want to say more about that?
Yes. Well, we do a lot of yogas at the shelter. The kids, we do a lot of yogas. I invite other people from every walks of life that knows about meditation, about yoga. We do a lot of yoga. We talk about everything. Where do you see yourself after the meditation? Where do you see yourself in 2 years or in 2 weeks? So after yoga and meditation, you have a clearer mind to move on forward. To say, let's move forward, let's keep going. So meditation and yoga is the best for survivors. I was talking to a psychologist in Miami, and she told me, Mia, I am so happy that you have part of my curriculum at the school. We have to have meditation twice a day, in the morning and before they go back home. So I have meditation twice a day and yoga 3 days a week.
Fabulous. Okay. Any closing words for this part of the conversation before we bring everybody else on?
Well, as I can, the three takeaways that I want everyone to take from this webinar: understand that sex trafficking happens everywhere. Sex trafficking is no limit, no bound. And second, trafficking happens to both urban community and to poor community. And the third, the understanding that the underlying cause of human trafficking is uniquely tied to every one of us. And each and every one of us has a part to play in this world. Are we going to be silent? Once you become silent, you are complicit. Are we going to be the voice? And what I want everyone to take away today: be a voice for voiceless. Be the voice for those who has nobody. Be the voice for a young immigrant child that is in your community that probably she's withdrawn, she's not talking, she has a lot of bruises, visible bruises on her. Be the voice. Be that voice, be that person, and that's how you overcoming the little challenges in life. That's how you make someone else's life meaningful, by being the voice.
Right. Awesome. Those are very, very powerful words. So thank you so much, Mia. And so for those who do not know, My Sister's Place is a partner for the women and girls sector of Charter for Compassion. And they have their Facebook page. Mia, you know what? Can you tell us, do you know off the top of your head what your Facebook page?
I think it's My Sisters, MY, and Sisters, apostrophe S, place HT at Facebook. And then with the website is www.mysistersplacehaiti.org.
MySistersPlaceHaiti.org. Okay.
.org.
So
Yeah.
people can learn more
And we're
about
on Twitter.
And they're on Twitter. That's right. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you. And so why don't we go ahead and bring those some who are with us that want to be with us here, and we welcome you. Thank you. Oh. And also for those who don't know, in the upper right-hand side of your screen, you'll see if those who are participating live, you'll see an opportunity to switch from either speaker view or gallery. And this is still being recorded, by the way. And you have a microphone, a little image of a microphone in the lower left-hand side that you can either mute or unmute. And I think that's it. Anything? Did I forget anything? I think that's it. Okay. Oh, Sandy.
Hi, everybody. I'm Sandy Hart. I'm the Director of Women and Girls. Once again, Mia, that was both the most heartbreaking call we have had and the most inspirational call we have ever had.
Thank you, Cindy.
I honestly think of all of the talks, and Lisa, thank you for a wonderful interview. I think out of all of our talks all year long, this really drives at the heart of our most pressing issue, is saving our children from this human rights violation at its most despicable. And I'm so grateful that you identify the intersectionality of the impact that either it is impacted by or impacts human trafficking and sex trafficking, and domestic violence, of course. And that is all of those things that were brought up on the scale of the Sustainable Development Goals. We are all interrelated, and every one of our issues relate to this. But yes, this is where it hits home the hardest. So I am oddly, delightfully inspired, but grounded so much in pain by just seeing the image of those two beautiful girls. Just, it's brought me to my knees. So thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I'm grateful for you. Great and grateful for you. On this valiant fight.
Thank you.
Namrata, I see that we don't have your video here, so I don't know if we have your voice here. If there's anything you would like to ask or question or share in some of your experiences, feel free, although you will have to unmute your microphone. So, Mia,
yes,
you could, aside from waving a magic wand to make all of this disappear, which would be a great thing. What do you view your next, if we can put you on the spot a little bit, where would you like to see My Sister's Place grow into, and what does that look like?
I want to see us going to having a radio show all over the United States, where I remember we need to talk about the mental health issue on human sex trafficking. With my girls, I had a lot of PTSD. I had a lot of withdrawn girls. Sometimes when you know that you hit the mark, and it's like 5 steps backward. So we really need to talk about the mental health of the survivor, because what you've done, you've taken somebody that's been broken into. Their spirit was broken, their body was broken, and one of those little girls that you see in the picture, what they used to do, the owner used to take the cigarettes. When she lit her cigarette, she would put it out on her forehead.
Oh my
So
God.
whenever she see someone smoking, she would hide. So when you think that wow, okay, she's done great, she had her first communion, but at at the reception, we had to ask everyone at the get together we had after the church, after she came back from church, we had to ask anybody if you're gonna be smoking, not inside the house or not inside the hall, because you have somebody who's broken. Whenever they see, when it depends. So I want to talk about the mental health component of survivors of victim domestic violence, survivors of human and sex trafficking. I would love to see my sister's place having a show. Let's talk. That's the name of the show. Let's talk. Let's talk about different issues. Education. Why? Public education awareness. How do we get to the bottom of it? How do we work with the industry? How do we work with I would love to see my sister's place having a show on the radio, and being a voice, having workshops for immigrant community, for law enforcement, working with the immigrant community. So this is where I see us going, toward having a show, working with the mental health community, and with people like you. And so we can have a guest from every walk of life, psychologists, from a survivor themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to share with you regarding the Charter for Compassion, that the social justice sector should, I'm going to make sure that they see this video, of course. I was hoping that the team could be on this call. But they are working with Compassionate Cops. There was an initiative to conversation and compassion for first responders, not just police officers, but particularly police officers. So one of the things about the Charter for Compassion being this network organized in sectors, it makes a very seamless and manageable way of convening. So we can discuss that. Let's take advantage of our network and our sectors and leverage that and see what we can do to bring this conversation very much alive with that.
As a matter of fact, Cindy, I don't know if my friend's still I see his name on the call. He's the president of the Haitian Chambers of Commerce. What I did last week, I spoke with the convention, the Chambers of Commerce and Convention in Atlanta, where you have businessmen coming into Atlanta. And sometimes they come in, and we need to have workshops. We need to speak with our business partners, with the Chambers of Commerce, the Convention Bureau. Put sometimes signs, just pamphlets, just have workshops. Because sometimes you have people coming in, it's just for the business of sex. They are not really coming in for convention.
Right. Oh, did we lose Mia?
No, I'm still here.
Okay, good.
Yes.
So you raise also an interesting question about reaching out to the business sector and Chamber of Commerce. Where in the States are we, as far, if you know, as far as policy and as far as getting lawmakers involved in obviously it's illegal, but it's still such a huge business that I'm just wondering if you know any prevention, any policymakers who are really being actively engaged in this subject.
And may I also add to that question, Lisa?
Yes.
Oh, we lost her. Rats.
Oh.
Internet. I'm sure she'll be back.
Yeah.
I'm anxious to know what UNESCO is doing, and perhaps Sorrel is. Oh, here she comes. Great. Hello.
Okay, I think. Go ahead.
In addition to Lisa's question about, what is your awareness of what lawmakers are doing, or other, high-level ranking institutions, I'm interested to know if you work with UNESCO, and if UNESCO's efforts are making any impact.
I've worked with UNIFEM.
Oh, UNIFEM.
I've worked with UNIFEM, with UNESCO. UNIFEM, I've worked with UNIFEM, and I have not worked with UNESCO. And I don't really think that, I don't know if that they're doing anything right now, but I'm not aware. I'm not aware.
Yeah, perhaps I can send you an update, and also tell you about the Commission on the Status of Women that is coming to New York in March, where you might consider making your way to, because you can meet them there, and we can talk about that. So,
okay.
Yeah. But to Lisa's point, I didn't mean
No, you're fine. You're totally fine. I'm listening, and I'm having, I don't know if everyone else is receiving this. I'm having some not great internet issues going on, because I'm seeing Mia going in and out.
Yes, I have.
Okay, good. So with my sister's place in Haiti, I'm just curious what kind of government support you've been getting with this.
I've been working with 3 senators to pass a law where when a girl has been tried, to stiffen that law. Rather than 6 months in jail, because the trafficker gets 6 months in jail, and a rapist gets 2 years in jail. So we need. I've been working with the senators to stiffen the laws. So with the police department, teaching them about education to raise awareness within the police department. But sometimes, as you said earlier, can we trust them?
Right.
Can we trust these people? Because sometimes they are protecting at the mercies of the traffickers, because Haiti is being such a poor country where any corrupted officer, anybody can be corrupted easily. So you have to find the good one out of the one that really not really care about protecting the right of young women and young men. So I started working with them by doing a public education within the police department, and also working with the health department in Haiti by teaching the nurse, these are the signs, talking to doctors, these are the signs that you need to look out for.
That's fabulous. And did you find the medical community receptive as well?
Yes, actually, we one of my partner, my vice chair, Dr. Pierre. I've worked with him for years. He's OBGYN. So when I approached him 4 years ago, and I told him I didn't have no money, he says, "What's new?" I said, "No, I'm really doing this work, and I need somebody to give me a certificate when I go to court, so I can present it to the judge." And he was willing to really, he says, "You know what? This is going to be my contribution to my country." And he's been working with me tirelessly, day and night. When actually we opened a clinic at the school, and he helped train the nurses, the nurses assistant to look for the sign, and also train police officers, also investigators that we work with, and with the mayor's office, that we really had great encouragement, and they said, don't stop fighting. This is great doing. You are helping kids, and this is how we end up with 234 girls. Because everybody knew that we had the school, we had a shelter, and we were providing 2 meals a day. We also provided medical physical assessment every 3 months, and every 6 months we have a health fair within the community. So, and we also, while having those health fair, talk about working together to make something sustainable, to bring, to help the farmers, women that into the farming community, to make sure that they have more seeds, more things when the harvest period comes, they have more money they can bring home. So this is what we've been doing, and unfortunately, after Hurricane Matthew, October 4th in 2016, I lost 3 of my girls in the water flood. We had to close our doors. The school is still functioning, but we don't have the shelter anymore.
Wow. So, does anybody else have any other questions? Because before we maybe go back to talking about more of the mental health side of things, because there's a couple more questions around that topic as well.
I'm wondering if we could hear from Sorrel. I don't mean to put him on the spot. He's muted and I think kind of busy. We're really lucky to have him here. I'm wondering if there might be, it looks like he's multitasking. So,
okay.
Unfortunately, Odratz, because I would like to know, his perspective from the Chamber of Commerce and what the business community's reaction is to this and response to this is. So perhaps if he, when he frees up, he can come back in. You might have also answered that very well.
Okay, we'll see if he comes back. If he comes back, then we'll shift topic again. But just out of curiosity, when you talked about the mental health part of it, and helping the young girls become psychologically and emotionally stable again, what's that process like? What kind of care are you able to offer them? Because I'm just thinking where the Stockholm syndrome occurs, where you begin to kind of fall in love with your pimp or captor.
The program that we try to implement within the shelter, and then also here, I've been doing some workshops with some shelters. The program that I help them to implement is, first of all, when they get there, they're not going to be your friend. Mm-hmm. They're not going to be your best friend. They're not going to, if you talk to them, they're not going to respond back to you. No eye contact, but keep pushing. So the second month, within 6 weeks, we started having, once they come in, we talk to them about we're going to have yoga every day and also meditation in the middle of the day. Out of nowhere, we're going to say, okay, let's have meditation. And if they become too rousy, too noisy, I said, let's start having meditation. Mm-hmm. So we started by having meditation. And the third month, what we try to implement, counseling, one-on-one counseling, where you let them talk about anything they want. Let them talk about where they came from. Everybody wants to belong. Right. Once they know that they belong, and I always learn that once you know you belong, you have your place in society. But when you know you don't belong, you can do any damage to anyone else around you or to yourself. So we have a counseling session, belonging and owning yourself.
Nice.
Owning your life.
Wow.
And you have to pass that course in order to go to the next step. The next step is when you see a man or you see a young man, how do you react? Mm-hmm. We take them sometime outside. We go to restaurants so they can make eye contact with people, so they can order their own food where the food doesn't have to be ordered for them. So we used to do that every Friday, where we either go have pizza hamburgers, things that they never had, things that was never offered to them. Well, we do our nails, our hair, and then the first year, if they last a year with us, and we try to go to the community by volunteering our help to others, that you are meaningful. You can be an asset to someone, but in a positive manner. So we do that for the state, because we want them to breaking into society. Because when when they feel that they're no longer part of society, they're like, okay, I have nothing to give. I have nothing to bring to the table. But you have to teach them that there's so much you can bring your mind, not your body.
Right.
You can bring your input. You can empower someone else, not part of this. So when they volunteer, we bring them to a shelter where they volunteer with orphan children, children who are abandoned by their parents. We don't bring them everywhere. We bring them to orphanage. We bring them to soup kitchen. We also bring them to the street corner. This is the life. This is the abuse. So no longer it's not a part of you. So now let's try to rescue the ones that are being abused. And we also teach them how to become a trainer. Teach the trainer. Train the trainer. So we train them how to become counselors. So have you to empower the girls.
That's very powerful, because that's one of the best ways to help a person heal, is to help another person heal. Like when you're, wounded, to help another who's wounded, and you find that you get life again. So fabulous.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I would like to add to that. I think what you're doing there is genius, because you're really changing the paradigm in which that young woman sees herself in the world.
Yes.
It's a simple shift. If now she's in a role of leadership. I mean, it's not so simple. I'm not suggesting it's simple by any means, but when you think about it, it's really just turning things around in a way that, as soon as you say, oh, really, I have the power to be a leader, and then you give them the tools and the skills, and they see themselves differently. And when they can see themselves differently, they'll see the world differently.
Yes.
I just want to just quickly say, I dropped into the chat box here 2 links. One is for UNESCO, and we've lost Namrata. I'll send that to her, as well as something about our United States government here. It might be of help for you as well. And there's, so those are the 2 perhaps helpful topics for all of us that are just supporting exactly what you're doing.
Awesome. Cool.
Okay.
Sorel, we have you back for half a second, maybe?
Do we?
I don't know. Let's see.
You're muted, Sorel?
He's muted.
Right. Can you hear us? Oh.
Whoop, we're walking.
Oh, okay. All right.
I think I think we should probably allow him, let's see.
I may not be aware of that we're still up on his screen.
Oh, that's a good point. All right. Well, yeah, I think. All right. So Mia, we're just reaching the closing time.
Okay.
Let's see. Sorel is now with us, maybe. Sorel, you're muted. Can we unmute you? No, I can't.
Oh, let me try this. There we go. Sorel, can you hear us? You are now unmuted.
Hello, Regine.
Ah.
Okay.
Good. Welcome.
Welcome.
And I'm assuming you can hear us? No.
Good morning.
Good morning.
There we go. Good morning.
Thanks, Sorrel. There you go.
Hello there. I hear a few people that I'm not seeing.
Huh.
Regine, you're here?
If, so, Sorrel, if you go up to the upper right-hand corner of your screen, you'll see something that maybe says speaker view. And if you click on that, it can move it into gallery view, and then you can see everyone.
Sorrel, we did have a question for you, and I'm wondering if you can speak to what the business community's response to Mia's work is, and you know, are there any initiatives that are happening through the chamber, particularly that you're seeing measurable results in, or do you have any goals or intention to do such?
Are you hearing me now, Mia?
I can hear you, but it's kind of why?
Okay, I can
But
hear
I can see you.
Yeah, I wanted to chime in just for a minute or so before I leave. First of all, thank you so much for your efforts. It takes a lot of courage to deal with what you're dealing with. We have a couple of organizations in the community that have been doing such work, and the Georgia Haitian American Chamber of Commerce has worked to support them. You know, they're successful in their own ways, but they're so small that they're unable to make a big dent beyond where they are. So I'm looking forward to connect your organization as well as Mia's organization with those organizations, and inside of our community here, see what we can do to advance the cause.
Wonderful. And let me just point out, there is a charter for Compassion Initiative in Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
And I have your email address, if I may introduce you to Robert Thompson, Bob Thompson.
Yeah.
You might know him.
No, I don't know Bob.
Okay. All right. And so Bob is very well connected. As a matter of fact, I can say here on a recorded line, he is the stepfather of Jason Carter, who ran for Senate not too long ago. Any rate, so he actually and is doing extraordinary work on the front of Interfaith, but also the community at large and the Charter for Compassion Initiative there. We are a decentralized organization, but and then of course, for your interest, what we're doing on a global scale, you know, we want to do both that and. So by all means, we can be in connection. So I can connect you locally and globally.
That's awesome.
Good deal. I appreciate that. And on that note, unfortunately, I have another conference that's starting now, and I'm going to get off.
Right on. Well, thank you for being with us very much. We're also at our closing hour, so we want to thank everyone for being with us, and thank you, Mia, for your exquisite work and sharing your story and work with us. And we go on and make the world a better place and end this horrific atrocity. So thanks, everyone. Oh, there is one other thing that I forgot that's super important, which is that on March 20th, the Women and Girls March and the Charter for Compassion Women.
January.
Oh, January. Sorry. I'm sorry. Thank you. January 20th for the march, the Women's Rights March and the Women's Movement March. Charter for Compassion Women and Girls sector is hosting and promoting and sharing everyone's amazing work. So for any parades that you go to, please share with us the location and photographs of your march and tell us what it is that you are marching for. And we will share it through social media. You can send your images and stories to women and girls at charterforcompassion.org. Anything else on that? Did I get it?
Sandy, can you call me when you're done? Please, Lisa, can you get Sandy my number? So
absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, everyone. Take care.
Okay, thank you. Good day.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.